So I'm going to show you how to soften the tip of a burnisher. They come very, very sharp. And we want to keep it pointy, but we want to soften it a little bit so it's not going to scratch the metal. So I have one here that you can kind of see that it's a little softer, but still has a little bit of that point to it so we can get into spots that we need to with it. So basically how we start this is you want to get a file that you don't care about anymore. You'd never want to mix your silver and your steel. Once you dedicate a file to steel, you'll never go back on silver with it. It's a 0 watt. You could also use probably a 2 or something else. So basically, I'm just gonna keep moving the burnisher around as I'm sanding this down. And check it. Make sure you're feeling for any kind of weird corners or sharpness to it. It's getting there. Okay, so we're finished with our file. We've got our end here a little bit rounded, but still we have our point there a little bit. Now I like to use a fingernail file personally. I tend to buy the ones that have a 180 grit and then a 220 grit. Do the same action where I'm moving it around. You can also buy sandpaper grits and go down through the grits and make sanding sticks with them. But what we're gonna do now is do our 180. Check. It's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to do the 220. Basically, I'm just trying to go over all the edges that I've already filed with the previous file to remove the scratches from the previous file. It's feeling pretty good. And then I do like to end with a 400 grit, and I don't have a sanding stick at the moment for that, so I'm just going to put this, wrap this around the existing file. Feels good. So you do want to make sure that you clean it off. There's going to be some dark gray dust on it, and you want to clean it off before you put it on your jewelry so you don't contaminate your jewelry with steel dust from this or the sandpaper compound. You can also do this with other burnishers. So I showed you just kind of the basic burnisher here, but you can actually soften any of these edges as well. I find that they come very sharp, or sometimes when they're popping them out of the metal molds, they kind of could have burrs on them. And you don't necessarily need to totally shape them, so you can just take your 400 grit just to kind of soften that a little bit, just to make sure that it's actually a nice clean edge. If there is something a little more sharp or not quite the way you want it, I would start with a higher grit. The 400 grit does not really remove material, it's just kind of removing scratches. And same thing with the square burnisher. You just want to gently roll those edges over and soften them. They come very, very sharp, and you don't want to scratch your stones or scratch your silver with them. And same thing with this rocking burnisher. Remove those. These also have these corners here that you want to get rid of. So that should help you dress your burnishers.